Happy Friday, Justin. Thank you for sitting down with me today.
Yeah, thank you for having me. Appreciate it.
Yep. And for everybody that's tuning in, this is the Cole Memo. I'm your host, Cole Preston. Every episode is released in audio, video, and transcript format. To find the transcript, audio, or video version of any episode, please refer to the description of the episode that you're listening to now. Within that description, you can find a link that will take you to our website, which will display that transcript and the platforms where you can find this episode in audio or video formats. If you're unable to locate the episode description on whichever platform you're listening from, simply take note of the episode number and visit thecolememo.com. From there, you can use our search functionality to find the corresponding episode, and then you'll be able to access the audio, video, and transcript version of that episode. You might also find any links that we reference during the episode so that you might be able to do your own research. If you're not listening to this episode of the Cole Memo on Patreon, then you're listening to this episode a little bit later than our patrons. To become a patron, go to thecolememo.com/Patreon. It's a great way to support our show. Another way to support our show is at thecolememo.com/support. You can make a one-time, monthly, or yearly contribution of your choice. This show is funded by listeners like you, but one of the best ways to support our show is absolutely free. Subscribe to or follow the show, leave a positive review from wherever you're listening to us from. Favorite this episode, give it a thumbs up, leave a comment, or share it with your best friend. Today is May 24th, 2024. Once again, we're sitting down on the Cole Memo with Justin Ward. Justin, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself? Tell us where we can find you online.
My name is Justin Ward. I'm one of the co-founders and the chief operating of Stony Branch Farms, a vertically integrated hemp farming and products producer located in Rushville, Illinois. If you're interested in learning more about our company, you can find more info on our website at stonybranch.com, and you can find us on social media at Stony Branch Ag, where we regularly update things that are going on the farm. So yeah, that's how to find us. You want me to do a little bit of background?
Uh, uh, yeah. Are you talking about background on what we're going to be
Uh,
talking today?
Background on myself and our kind of my company
Yeah,
story.
please go ahead. You mentioned you're not the first generation farmer. You mentioned you're a multi-generational farmer. So please, yeah, give us some background.
Yeah. So I grew up in Illinois, outside of a town, a little town called Macomb, kind of out in the middle of nowhere. Have been in agriculture my whole life. My grandfather and uncles ran an ag retail business that supplied necessary inputs for farmers. My whole life, my dad's still involved in running ag retail management. My stepfather's family, who we've been a part of for a long time now, is a fifth generation. We're part of their fifth generation family farm in Rushville, Illinois, and that's where Stony Branch is located. My background personally, I graduated from Western Illinois University with a degree in agricultural science, and right after that, moved to Colorado and got involved very early in the recreational and medical industry out there, and very quickly worked up to managing cultivation facilities. Did that for several years before I got the opportunity in 2018 to move back to our family farm and start this new venture with myself, my wife, my mother, my stepfather, and my brother Lance. And we've been doing that ever since, focused specifically on full spectrum CBD products, although we do offer some of what everyone is calling the deltas, so some Delta 8, some Delta 9. Although I will say that is a pretty small part of our business. We are much more heavily focused on CBD, and specifically what we're known for is our living soil grown CBD flower. Last year, we won both the High Times Hemp Cup first place for CBD flower, as well as the Emerald Cup. So really known nationally for our high quality living soil organic CBD flower. And the reason I'm here today is to speak about some recent developments at the state level in Illinois. I don't know if we'll have any time to get into some of the things that are happening at the federal level too, but basically hemp is under attack in Illinois at the state and both the federal level. And we're working against that to try to fight for sensible regulation for our industry and keep things alive, and work against prohibiting the cannabis plant anymore than it already has been, because that's taking steps backwards, and that's not what we're trying to do. So
Yeah.
that's a quick rundown.
And keep that in the pocket, folks. What we're trying to do here is decriminalize the cannabis plant and give access to the people. And if I could do my best to give a little bit of background before we dive right in, this all started in really 2018, but what inspired it was a 2014 industrial farm bill. And the definition of hemp was originally defined in that 2014 Farm Bill, but the definition was expanded in 2018, according to conversations I've had with legal professional Rod Kite, who you can see on the Cole Memo in the past, episode number 76. The term industrial was dropped. They expanded the definition of hemp and completely revamped it so that it included the cannabis plant and any part of the plant, including the seeds and all derivatives, extracts, cannabinoids, isomers, acids, salts, and salts of isomers, whether growing or not, with a delta 9 tetrahydrocannabinol concentration on a dry weight basis of no more than 0.3% THC. It's a very long way of saying that, parts of the cannabis plant were descheduled. If you look at the Farm Bill from 2018, literally, I can pull it up right now, and I like to sometimes. If you scroll to the bottom of the Farm Bill, you can see that parts of the cannabis plant were descheduled from the Controlled Substances Act. The reason that is, really important to point out is because right now at the federal level, there's, as you mentioned earlier, there's that debate about hemp and everything, but there's also this debate about rescheduling. And currently, it sounds like the DEA and HHS has recommended that cannabis be rescheduled. Advocates like myself, and many others insist that at the very least, cannabis should be treated like alcohol and tobacco and hemp, which are descheduled. And once again, just to show people, I'm displaying the Farm Bill of 2018. You scroll to the very bottom, and it's a long bill, folks, but they made it nice and easy for you. It's at the very bottom. Here it is. This is how easy it is to deschedule cannabis. And we just did parts of the plant. All we need to do is take it the rest of the way. And if I could, again, just to kind of put this in a bottle, remember, folks, throughout this episode, throughout this debate, throughout this entire conversation, whenever you hear that, that is at least what my focus is, which is treating the cannabis plant as it should be. And I think this is a great first step. Anything to add there, Justin?
Yeah, I think you're getting into something really interesting because I think you're showing the stark difference between the mentality behind at least the people I know within the hemp industry and what I've seen from Big Canna. And understand, I've been on both sides of this. I've spent almost just as much time. I've been in cannabis a decade, and I've been on both sides of the fence, recreational and hemp. And I think what we have seen in all of the action from Big Cannabis is that they are 100% fine with further prohibition as long as it benefits their interests. Whereas hemp, we have no bone to pick with Big Canna that isn't being the fight isn't being started by them. It's all coming from that side. We simply just want to coexist. I think this industry that we're all in now with the Delta, CBD, everything included under the hemp was created by Congress and allowed to prosper for 6 years. And I think the idea that we can just come in and pull the rug out from underneath everybody now that we have a multi-billion-dollar industry that spans the entire country that is a federally legal crop is insane. And that we're seeing this narrative at the state level that hemp farmers are criminals and drug dealers, and that the business that is considered federally illegal still is being propped up and helped while we are being outlawed and called criminals when we are dealing with a 100% federally legal crop. And it's sad that we have been pitted against each other because we're all working with the same plan, and it never needed to be this way. And it's all been driven by greed. I think there's room for everybody in this industry. And if we could just help these people realize that they don't have to control 100% of the market to still have a piece of the cannabis industry and have a product. We have such a monopolized market here in Illinois for cannabis, and they just continually push, try to drive that further into a more highly monopolized industry that allows less people to play. I'm kind of rambling on here, but one other thing I'd like to mention is that, there's a lot of talk about social equity, and I would say that hemp is far more socially equitable than any social equity cannabis program in the country because it allows anybody and everybody who wants to get involved in it. It's not restrictive. It doesn't limit the number of licenses. There's not an insane financial, capital burden to get involved in it that there is with, the recreational cannabis industry or medical cannabis industry, which again, I'm not opposed to those things, but I think pitting us against each other is not a good thing. And we've been forced into this situation by Big Canna. We never wanted this. We just want to run our businesses the way the federal government said we were allowed to do, and that's what we've been doing. That's my 2 cents.
Yeah. And if I could just briefly add, in many ways, the Farm Bill is arguably more progressive than the Cannabis Regulation and Tax Act. And with that said, it could be argued that in that context, federal law is ahead of state law. And what this would essentially do is bring us back.
Yeah.
Bring
Yeah.
us back. And it's insane. And, if I could just add a little bit for what, if people are wondering what I mean by it's more progressive than the Cannabis Regulation and Tax Act, why don't I quote our main cannabis regulation oversight officer? She mentioned that if the federal government closes the Farm Bill, uh, this part of the Farm Bill, that quote 95% of our problems go away. Here's the part that's important. She mentioned that right now local law enforcement is reluctant to do anything due to hemp's federal legality. So in other words, people like, what are you so cannabis is legal, and yeah, local law enforcement will stop people or whatever. And I've actually even had attorneys on the show. We've discussed the issue of odor-proof cannabis, and episode 49, one of the attorneys has mentioned that he's been able to get people their cannabis charges lowered by arguing that they were in fact in possession of hemp. In other words, it's a way out of the arcane rules that still exist in the state of Illinois by arguing, hey, this is federally legal. Again, a way in which it seems the federal law is now protecting us.
Yeah. And it's a
From
far
state
more
law.
inclusive industry because it doesn't set all these barriers to entry and limitations, and it's a much more free market. So I think,
Now,
if Illinois didn't want the prevalence of all these products, they would make a better effort to be able to license more dispensaries, more grows, allow more people to get involved in the industry instead of controlling and monopolizing it for the few people who got in early enough and had the money. The problem is consumers aren't happy with the recreational market we have in Illinois. They're paying obnoxious prices. People aren't happy with the quality in a lot of cases, and they've gone to hemp, or maybe they just don't have access. There's so many small towns all across Illinois where people have to drive a significant distance to get access to a dispensary. And again, I'm not anti-recreational cannabis. I was in that industry. I'm pro recreational cannabis, but not in a way that not in the way that we're trying to do it
protects an
here.
oligopoly, protects a state-sponsored oligopoly. I mean, if we could just get to brass tacks, that's what the debate is about. It was first presented as this, and it still is sometimes presented as this public health debate. And the children. Everybody agrees that children should not, be able to purchase these products. I've not heard, in fact, one person really disagree with that idea. The only debate I've heard really is what is an adult and what is it a child, but we don't have to get into that nuance. Let's talk about, so again, let's peel away the public health concern, because honestly, if you're concerned about public health, then you should welcome everybody to be above board. There's the answer. So that's the answer. Easy. Let's get public health out of the way. Really, this debate is about limited licensing versus open licensing. And look, we literally had this debate about hemp on episode 3 of the Cole Memo. We've been talking about hemp since before the Cole Memo existed on my old podcast and everything, but it became a really hot topic just around the inception of this new show, the Cole Memo. So if you want to go back and check out a pretty heated debate on it, it's exactly what we're describing here. And it all has to do with this idea that this structure undermines social equity. So really quick, let's talk about that. But before we get to social equity, I just want to say that and this isn't just a plug for my show, it just sets us up a little bit. The name of the show is called The Cole Memo, not because my name is Cole, although that works out really well. It's called The Cole Memo because there's a piece of federal policy that was issued in 2013 that set the stage for today's cannabis landscape. And some of the cannabis CEOs that I've talked to have argued that this was the beginning of what they call Cannabis 2.0 or Prohibition 2.0, which is what some other cannabis executives call it. I think that one's a little bit on the nose. Let's call it Cannabis 2.0 for now. And what they mean by that is highly regulated, compliance focused, limited licensed cannabis. And it seems that that definition is baked into what we consider to be social equity. So just really quick, what we're going to be talking about today is an Illinois Senate Executive Committee hearing, and we're going to be getting knee deep into that. I produced an article on it, and I'm displaying it on my screen right now. The very bottom of the article is this idea of undermining social equity. And so, since we got to this point, I just want to say it really quick. For those unfamiliar with the connection to social equity, here's a brief overview of how Illinois defines it. Social equity is primarily delineated by restricting the number of licensees. This definition becomes pertinent because hemp licensing operates on an open basis, meaning it's accessible to all. Hemp's unrestricted availability directly contradicts Illinois' approach to maintaining limitations on licensing. It appears that the state of Illinois is fundamentally opposed to fostering a more open and competitive market, opting instead to uphold limited participation in order to artificially sustain high prices on cannabis. And if you're wondering if I just pulled that out of my ass, no, that's kind of just inspired by a direct quote from our governor. And you can see that direct quote right now. The reality is we've limited the number of licensees in part because we wanted to make sure that the social equity licensees had a fair shot in the industry and they weren't just edged out to the very end. Having too many dispensaries in the market would make it so that people can't make money. In short, the CRTA was purposefully crafted to guarantee the financial viability of those who hold licenses in the market. And if I could just put a pin in that, again, hemp just directly challenges that environment because hemp says, no, there's no limitations per se. I mean, you have to operate within a framework. You can't, sell products with false advertising, for example. Like, just because hemp was descheduled doesn't mean you don't have to comply with consumer protection protocols, right? So, I guess what I'm saying is, yeah, hemp directly challenges what the administration and the General Assembly has created. And I think that's really what this is all about. Sorry for being a little bit long-winded on that, Justin, but do you agree with where I'm coming from? Like this is all it's about.
I 100% agree with you. You're absolutely right. I mean, it's all about protecting the interest of everyone who's invested in the recreational cannabis industry. We're a direct competition to them, or at least that's how they see us. And we're not under, the same regulatory and tax structure that they are. And I don't know that they want us to be, they claim in this most recent bill, which we can start to get into the details of that one if that's something you want to do, but
Sure.
we're talking a little bit about that, but that there, this whole most recent tax has been, it's been pushed as being regulation for our industry to basically wipe out Delta 8 and try to create a framework for hemp farmers to continue to exist. I can tell you from the language scientifically, there are so many errors in this that we would not be able to even offer full spectrum non-intoxicating CBD products under the rules that they're put in this. And I guess to kind of start from the beginning of what we're dealing with. So kind of where we're at is yesterday, Senator Lightford introduced an amendment to House Bill 4293, which is a bill that has to do with, I believe it's massage therapists and sexual assault. It's nothing to do with hemp. It's a gut and replace situation. So they Senate Amendment 2 is what she filed that was discussed in committee and was passed to be added to the bill, at least to be sent to the Senate to then be voted on if it was going to remain in there. But it's 76 pages, I believe, that basically decimates the hemp industry. I think what we're seeing here is the last several sessions, the big cannabis lobby has come in with legislation to outright ban a lot of our products. They have been unsuccessful in that. They clearly took a new strategy this time of maybe let's try to push regulation, but because this is such a confusing topic, we'll write the regulation in a way that seems like it's regulating it. Truly, it's destroying and banning the industry, making 95% of the products, even outside of the deltas, all non-intoxicating products illegal. It creates issues for even animal feed and grain fiber. It creates new tax structures, new regulations. It tries to basically force us under the similar umbrella of what the recreational and medical cannabis industries deal with. So a lot more capital investment to get involved in the growing as far as security concerns. It gives the Department of Ag a lot of power to implement rules and make changes. It gives emergency rulemaking power to be able to make very quick changes to our industry if this was passed. you have to forgive me that I don't know it all by heart yet because we just got this yesterday. So I was up late last night and I've been on the phone all day, fighting for this, fighting against this. But I can tell you it would be devastating to the hemp industry. And the big part of this that we know that this is, that they're not being truthful about wanting to keep the hemp industry alive and not to ban us is that no hemp industry stakeholders, industry associations, no one from the hemp industry was included in this conversation to draft any of this language. It was 100% put together by big cannabis and their lobbyists to try to get rid of us. So I think if legislators truly wanted to help our industry continue to grow and thrive and to protect consumers, some people from the hemp industry would have been invited to the table because we have been in Springfield, the last 3 years, every single year, meeting with legislators, pushing for, proper regulation of our industry to avoid this kind of thing. And we have never been asked to come to the table. So I guess something else I would mention at this point is we're currently reaching out to as many legislators as well as other people within the hemp industry. We want to host an event at our farm to invite legislators, to invite other members of the hemp industry who want to hear their voices heard, who can network with legislators and start to educate them and show them what the hemp industry really looks like, because they have been painted a picture of, a bunch of people producing products that look like kids snacks that are poisoning people. And that is maybe the worst 1% of, our industry is doing some of that. It's not the whole industry, and that it could easily be regulated to avoid some of the negative things that need to be dealt with. I'm not saying we don't need any regulation. We're absolutely for regulation. We already go above and beyond with our own business to meet a lot of the same standards the medical cannabis and recreational cannabis industry does through our testing, all done third party. We go above and beyond with the required amount of testing and sharing COAs on our products. The last thing we want to do is provide any product that does anything that does any harm to anyone. We're trying to bring benefit to people and provide products that are effective, safe, and affordable. And we just want to be continued allowed to do that in Illinois. And that's what this fight is all about, is just allowing us to continue to do business. This is 6 years of my family's life that we put our blood, sweat, and tears into this. We left successful careers in other states to come back to chase our version of the American dream. And we just don't want to see our hopes and dreams crushed. We just want to have a place in this industry like so many others out there that want to be involved with cannabis and hemp. So that's what we're fighting for. And we're fighting for everyone in the hemp industry. This isn't just about us. I'm not meeting with legislators to serve my interests. I want to make sure that the rest, of my peers in this industry are heard too. And that's why we want to host an event that involves everybody that wants to be involved, so everybody can have their voices heard and we can unify our industry and have a stronger, unified voice.
Yeah. And again, this has to do with how easy it is to start up the business. Because we've had, for example, one of the competing measures, Representative Ford's measure, which was specifically called out during this proposal from a member of the Craft Brewing Guild. I might be butchering that just a bit, but his proposal is similar in that it says hemp producers will comply by the same testing regulations, taxing and labeling, and age requirement regulations. However, the limitations on licenses would not exist. This is the difference, folks. It's only about this. Nobody's saying they don't want to play by rules. And I just wanted to make that very clear. Now, is this a good time to talk about how you were basically referenced during this hearing? Can I play that moment and then you unpack it?
Absolutely.
Okay, let's watch this moment. I'll turn on captions for people that are watching. And here we go.
No one's telling them that they can't sell their products. They just cannot sell products that have a THC content.
Well, and I'm told, and I have a constituent who has a large capital in.
I am so sorry. One moment here. The video just froze. I'm going to pause this.
They just cannot products that have a THC content.
Well, and I'm told, and I have a constituent who has a large capital investment in growing hemp. And I'm told that this bill will interfere with selling 95% of his products. And so, and it's not just Delta 8. And so if someone in the industry, perhaps you, sir, could explain what are we talking about? Because it's disturbing to me if I'm going to put someone out of business when they've invested thousands and thousands of dollars.
That's just like the drug dealer on the street selling drugs. Does that disturb you? This is no
Oh,
different.
absolutely it does.
Well,
Don't.
then that's who sent you the emails, a drug dealer selling drugs behind a hemp license. They're not behind the cannabis license.
All
I
right.
visited
Senator
the,
Tracy,
I have
for-
visit,
Can you unpack that moment for us?
Yeah. So what we just saw was Senator Lightford, the one who was talking about drug dealers, communicating with our Senator Jill Tracy. So Jill Tracy, we had been communicating in email all day through this. I had notified her of what was going on, and we really thank her for being the only one on the committee who tried to dig in and understand and learn how this was actually affecting hemp businesses. And essentially what we communicated to Senator Tracy was that this bill goes far beyond banning Delta-8, that the regulations get rid of almost all non-intoxicating full spectrum CBD products. And as she tried to convey that to Senator Lightford, she called us drug dealers. So I think it's funny for her to be calling us drug dealers while we're selling completely federally legal products, as she helps prop up an industry that's currently federally legal. Again, I'm not opposed. I want to see the recreational industry grow in a fair and actually equitable way. So I'm not trying to pit us against each other again, although that's the position that we've been put into. But I mean, the hypocrisy is insane to be calling us drug dealers when, I mean, her whole motive and narrative, she continues to talk about this, is how we need to help more people who were actually considered drug dealers before this was legal have an opportunity to get in the industry. And I'm supportive of that as well, but it's just so ridiculous to call people who are selling federally legal products, I mean, drug dealers. But
Well, and here's the thing. I've always said that the best way I think to start addressing social equity is to address the cycle that caused the need for it, for lack of better words. And we've not done that. The Cannabis Control Act of 1978 is still largely in effect today. You can get arrested for having simply over 30 grams of cannabis. If you're an out-of-state resident, you can get arrested for having 17 grams of cannabis. There's a problem when the only answer to anything that's considered a cannabis-related infraction is the criminal law, and realize that that's what it is. The criminal law is the main enforcement mechanism for this system. So it's not like if you're operating outside of this system, without a Cannabis Regulation and Tax Act license, that, oh, you just get a business fine and a polite little warning. No, you're a criminal, just like you were before. And that's how they'll deal with you. Trafficking, they'll impound your property. That's the toolbook we're dealing with in a legal state.
yeah, I think we're just seeing Lightford further her scare tactics. You know, she's been big behind pushing this narrative that we're poisoning kids. One of the big things they've been pushing lately is that 10% of high schoolers report using Delta-8. Well, they don't report in that same study that 30% report using marijuana. So,
Right.
I mean, they're picking and choosing their story and crafting it to fit their narrative, and they're not telling the whole truth. And it's just in an attempt to smear hemp farmers, people producing a federally legal crop and products, and put us in a negative light to help serve the interest of big cannabis. I mean, it's plain and simple. It couldn't be more obvious. And it's been going on for years at this point. All of us that have been involved in this fight can see it plainly for what it is.
Yeah. I thought this was just an interesting little moment that I wanted to play with you, since you mentioned you were one of the people trading emails. Let's take a look at this moment.
Opinion. If you want to play with Delta-8, Delta-9, that's fine. Be regulated under the Cannabis Act. That would allow you to do so. So your 100-some plus emails that you receive with folks telling you that they will go out of business, I would only question the honesty of those emails, because when they themselves went to the Department of Agriculture and applied for a hemp license, the license does not allow them to create cannabis THC products. So they're illegally running a business with maybe that's just one or two of their 100 products.
So I just thought it was interesting that they questioned the honesty. And if I could, just for, another moment, just at the very beginning, let's just play this, how this started. And for background folks, before, when these bills are called, what some people will try to do is they'll let others know and have them file witness slips. So the word proponent means that you support this bill. The word opponent means that you are opposed to the bill, that you do not support it. And then I think there's one other status that you can choose, which is like record of appearance, just to show that you were there, but you didn't necessarily have a vote. So at the beginning of this hearing, they read the tallies aloud. I'd like to show you all Senator Lightford's reaction.
On this bill, but I'm going to limit it to 3 proponents and 3 opponents. Senator Lightford, right now you have 27 proponents, 682 opponents, 11 no position. Leader Lightford on your bill.
I didn't know I had any opponents.
So if you weren't able to hear it, she started by she's just audibly laughing, and she said, "I didn't know I haven't had any opponents." And then there's audible laughter in the room. I don't know. For me, I didn't appreciate it. Just like, regardless of what you believe, if you think these people are dishonest, as she said earlier, or anything, like people participating in the democratic process, it just felt like kind of making fun of people that were voicing their opinion, because I'm not arguing in bad faith. As we started this podcast, it's all about decriminalizing the cannabis plant, and in that end, I find it very offensive to laugh at that.
Yeah, it doesn't show a lot of respect for your constituents. And I think it's also very telling to the fact that she didn't know she had this much opposition shows they have not communicated with the people that this bill would affect whatsoever to help craft these rules. Because would there be such strict opposition if this was going to be a ban that was going to benefit us for the hemp industry long term? And I think they pass all the opposition off as, oh, these are people that just want to sell illegal stuff. They don't want regulation. They just want to keep operating the way they are, which is 100% not true. 95% of the hemp industry, everyone that's doing things, above board, we're seeking fair and sensible regulation because we want to be protecting our industry, and we don't want to have to fight every single legislative session. I mean, the amount of stress and anxiety it causes every legislative session to be afraid that your business is going to be stripped away from you when you've invested millions of dollars, everything my family has, into building this. Just trying to chase our version of the American dream is devastating, causes an incredible amount of stress and anxiety, and it just makes it hard to operate our business. I mean, how do we, our business is extremely labor intensive. We run with a very small crew. It's operated by my whole family. We work 7 days a week, literally all the time. And when we get pulled into these fights, it draws us away from just running and operating our business. I mean, we're all hands on deck, for weeks at a time, sometimes in these legislative fights. And I'm happy to get on and do it, but man, I would much rather be in the greenhouse with the plants, because that's what I got in this industry to do. And that's what I love, and trying to create products that help people, not fighting to just have the right to do business.
Yeah. And I just want to say, folks, that, definitely check out, I'm going to have a link in the podcast description for an episode and an article that I wrote. I'm going to display the article right now. It was when this language was first introduced, not in the bill that it's currently in. This language was originally in a different bill, and as Justin mentioned, it was kind of shoved into this unrelated bill, which is a tactic that some people call gut and replace. So on April 11th, there was a Cannabis Business Association of Illinois press conference, and this is kind of where this all started. And like I said, I'll have this linked in the podcast description, and I will also have the hemp growers' response to that press conference, because I feel that it gets, if you'd like to learn more, it really gets into this issue and different things that have been said. And fact checks and everything else. So again, if you'd like to learn more on this issue, and I want to give you some space before I go. I do have like kind of a final question for you, but anything that we didn't discuss today that you kind of, again, I'm just trying to give you the space that you'd like to kind of shout to the people while we're on here, or
Yeah, my message would be to legislators and to other members of the hemp industry, people that want to see this industry continue to thrive. To legislators, first of all, is we want to work with you. Please invite us to the table. We want to come help draft sensible regulations that allow our industry to continue to thrive, that protects consumers, and doesn't ban these products that bring so much benefit to people all across the state and have created this multi-billion-dollar industry. To other people in the hemp industry, I feel, especially here in our state of Illinois, but all across the country, is we just need a little more unity and a little bit stronger voice. I think I'm guilty of this. I get very much stuck in the greenhouse and operating on an island until one of these situations where we need to come together. So we're going to be working with the Illinois Hemp Growers Association to create a legislative day on our farm, hopefully within the next month or two after the session is over, to try to get as many legislators to our farm as possible that want to learn about this, that want to understand, that want to work with the hemp community to help draft regulations that work for us in our industry and don't destroy our businesses. So those would be the two big things I would put out there, and we will be reaching out and trying to put a message out there, I'm sure through socials and emails through the Illinois Hemp Growers Association, to coordinate all of this. So, everyone involved in hemp in Illinois, keep your eye out for that. We want to, again, include everybody. This isn't about doing what's just best for Stony Branch. It's about doing what's right for the industry, because we're not taking the same approach as Big Canna. I'm not just thinking about my pocketbook. I'm thinking about everybody like me, that this was their dream to get involved in this industry, and hemp gave them the opportunity to do that. So how do we protect all those people and protect their dream of just having a business of their own that deals with this wonderful plant that brings so much benefit? So that's my 2 cents.
Yeah. Well, thank you. And you kind of answered the question I was going to hit with before we go. And I always hit the Illinois Hemp Growers Association with this, and anybody really kind of in this space. This issue is not going away, clearly. Like you said, and it's being debated at the federal level now. Unfortunately, also from an Illinois representative who's saying, well, kind of partnering up with Sam, it seems, or maybe Sam's just really happy about what they're saying. And if folks don't know what I'm talking about when I say Sam, well, Sam is one of the #1 prohibitionist group. In other words, they don't believe cannabis should be legal at all in the United States or anywhere, and they're applauding, repealing the Farm Bill. That tells you who you're lining up with. Episode 74 features Jordan Davidson from Sam. He's been on my show several times. I've had him debate the folks from NORML, which of course is one of the top groups for cannabis legalization. So if you guys want to check that out, episode 74. But back to the question. How, is it about staying connected and trying not to get too lost in the garden, since apparently your garden's always being attacked? How do you move forward is my question.
I think, yes, I think we have to work together. I think that our voices are stronger together than individually. We need a unified message. I think the hemp industry has talked a lot about wanting sensible regulations. The one thing we haven't done is come together and craft those. We've had some groups try to put things together. I don't know that we've had a unified effort, and that it's difficult to do. I'm not trying to make light of this, because it's not an easy thing to get everybody together and everybody on the same page. The hemp industry is very broad and entails a lot of different kinds of products and different things. So it's doable, and it's something we need to work to do if we want to protect our industry into the future. So we're going to do what we can to not get stuck back into the garden underneath the canopy, and stay in touch with the rest of the community and try to get ahead of this, which we've done that in the past. I think the difference is we need to do it together as an industry, and not as a bunch of different small groups, but all together with a unified message. So that is my hope, that we can start to work towards that over the summer. If we can stave off this last fight, which I have been getting news throughout the day. I've been on the phone all day with people in Springfield and all across the state, fighting this most recent effort. It does look like we're making positive direction, in avoiding anything happening again in the session, although it's still yet to be seen as session hasn't ended yet. But it's looking positive as of right now. Hopefully we can fight that off and work towards possibly in the next session introducing our own bill that represents all of the hemp industry and has our input from it, so that we can build something that we can sustain into the future, and that we don't have to continue to fight every legislative session just to do business. We can understand what the rules are going to be. Everyone will operate within them. We'll create a better, safer industry that provides high quality, premium, effective, safe products. I guess that's my spiel.
Well said. And, not to belabor too long, but that's one point I feel like that I didn't cover necessarily that has been my most recent revelation. You noticed I mentioned it earlier, maybe, that the guy from the craft brewing guild or whatever, and he mentioned that the Brewers Association, I'll find the quote here in just a moment, but how even distributors agree that this isn't something. So to hear that, and I'll find the quote to more clearly reference what I'm talking about, but to hear that, to just piggyback off the point you made, makes me feel like this is it makes me feel a little bit more hopeful, because there's more people involved than it's not just criminals, right? People hiding behind a drug dealer hiding behind a hemp license, as Senator Lightfoot said. It's people that have responsibly provided intoxicants to our communities for quite a long time. I believe what was mentioned when it was Brent Scheuer he's a brewmaster at Ingrained Brewing Company in Springfield, Illinois. He's on the Illinois Craft Brewing Guild, and it was ABDI that he said stands united in opposing this amendment.
And it was kind of a unique thing, because we're talking about craft brewers and large distributors that aren't always, they're usually in competition from the way he was understanding. So he was saying the fact that they had come together on this says a lot. So I think, we're seeing a lot of people come together that would be negatively affected by this to try to fight this. And that's why we've been able to stave it off the last several years, is because legislators underestimate the amount of people this is going to affect and how big this industry has become in the state. So I think that's the power we have. The problem is we maybe wait a little bit too much at the last minute, which is what we're forced into, because that's when this legislation gets thrown at us. If these were good bills that they really thought they could get pushed through, they wouldn't introduce them in the last 24, 36 hours of session in a gut and replace bill. They do that for a reason. It's to try to sneak them through. If they felt like they had a really good, strong bill that had the support of Congress, they wouldn't need to do it that way. So,
right.
You can read a lot into the way they've gone about things the last several years that show they have not really been willing to work with us in the hemp industry. So we just want to change that. We're not, we can forget about what's happened up to this point, and let's just start to move forward from a new place to where we can find a solution that works for everybody, because it's possible. There's no reason it has to be, all or nothing. So.
Yeah, I will just say I thought that was another interesting comment that was made, that you guys are the ones that are complaining at the last minute, not them. And they've been working on this for years and not you. And that's not entirely true, I'll just say, because again, I've had Representative Ford on my show. I'll have it linked in the podcast description. We met in Denver, Colorado to talk about it last summer. And so, that's not last minute, that's last summer. And I believe that proposal had existed before then. I'm not sure how long before then, but there have been different iterations of a different proposal than just a complete lockdown, a complete ban, which seems to have been the side of big cannabis. And
that's just another false narrative. We've had a number of different groups as well as individuals lobbying for hemp regulation at the Capitol in Illinois for years. For 3+ years, we have been doing this. So the idea that we showed up at the last minute to do this is totally untrue. The other part of it is no one in the hemp industry was notified or included, asked to be a part of crafting these regulations. They were thrown into a gut replace bill, 24, 48 hours before, depending on which bill you're looking at, before the end of session. So I think, again, it's another narrative to try to smear us hemp farmers and make us look bad, that we're just skating in at the last minute to just try to save Delta 8, is the way they want to make it look. when that's not the case at all. We've been fighting for years, and had we been invited in the conversation to draft this at whatever point they started doing this behind the scenes, because again, we were never told, no one was ever notified. So I think we need to move forward. We can point fingers all day long. That doesn't help us move forward. And I don't want to be a part of that either. I'm just identifying what has happened to this point. What I really want to do is move forward. And that includes with Senator Lightford, because maybe she has been misled on some of these things. I don't know that her true intent is to do this. She may really believe she is regulating our industry in a way that'll help us, because the science of this is really complex. I understand that. And, she just may be confused about things. And if she came and sat down with hemp producers in the state and growers and processors, and we could explain to her what is so problematic about this language, she might change her mind. I don't know. I don't want to assume that she just has all negative intentions. I don't want to assume that anybody does. I want to assume that everybody has the best in mind for their constituents of the state, although maybe that's not always the case. So we invite anybody and everyone who wants to learn about this, whether they're opposed to hemp, whether they're pro hemp, to come out and learn about it, because there is so much confusion and most people are getting one side of the story and not the whole picture.
Well, Justin, thank you again for joining us. Folks, we'll have the links for Stony Branch in the comments, and I hope you found value in this conversation. Check out the episode if you want the full context of the hearing. I produced a full transcript for you all, so check it out. Justin, thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Yep. Take care, everybody. We'll see you on the next episode.